All right, to our viewers who are joining us, welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the One Thing Every Girl Should Know podcast. This is a special live recording event, and the topic is School Daze Prep Talk. And I've gathered these young women who are very inspirational and smart and talented and have some important things to say. They are going to share about their experiences. And our whole intent here in having this conversation is to encourage more conversation between moms and their daughters who are college bound. We want you guys to talk about things that will prepare them for success. Things that they should be aware of, things that they should practice, and things that they should know. And, it will also build your relationship with your daughter. It will give a foundation of communication. So again, thank you for joining us. And we're going to jump right in. I'm going to introduce our panelists. First, Mia Hemstad. Mia is a wife, mother of 2 children, and the founder of the No Longer Last Journey. It's a movement to empower women to make their health, happiness, and well-being a priority without guilt or shame. Mia's authentic and inspiring message has led to her being featured in media outlets such as Parents, Yahoo, Love What Matters, and Cafe Mom. Mia is also an abuse survivor who lives with diagnosed PTSD and depression. And through sharing her healing journey online, she encourages others to seek help without shame. Mia currently lives with her husband and 2 children in Portugal. And I have watched her YouTube videos, and I encourage anyone who is in search of some helpful tips, to tune in. Mallory Howard is also our panelist tonight or this afternoon. She is a screenwriter and producer in Hollywood. She has recently written for the CW and for Marvel, and is currently developing her own original series. Mallory graduated from Santa Clara University in 2014 with a degree in communications. Next is Nia. Nia Howard is a writer residing in a rainy coastal city. She's currently working as an independent screenwriter while copywriting for a major global retail brand. If she's not wordsmithing, you can probably find her planning her next globetrot, looking up haunted stuff, or watching cute animal videos. Sometimes she does all 3 at once. The open tabs on her computer are out of control. Jasmine Lee is currently working toward a bachelor's degree in computer science at the University of Texas at San Antonio. She previously studied film at Santa Fe University of Art and Design. Upon graduation, she hopes to combine her technical skills with her passion for film and cinematography. Monica Lucas is a wife and mother of 2 boys, Jaden 4 and Ethan 2. Monica works in the political department of a teachers union, and in her spare time, she likes to cook, bake allergy-friendly treats to accommodate Jaden's food allergies, binge Netflix, attempt to have a weekly date night with her husband, Anthony. So again, welcome to all my guests. I am delighted and honored to have you all here, and I can't wait to get started. Before we do, the guests know a little bit about your background, but if you want to give some more information, I think we'll do that now. Maybe you can just tell them, a little bit about who you are, how you were raised, because we know that all of that pours into us and informs how we navigate not only college, but life. So also, I should mention, people may notice that I have the same last name as a number of my panelists. So if you don't know, I am related to four of the five panelists. My niece, Monica Lucas, is married to my nephew. Jasmine Lee is my bonus daughter, and Mallory and Nia are my biological daughters. Mia Hempstead is an honored guest. I feel like I know her a little bit because I've watched her YouTube videos, and I hope she feels like family when this is all over. So, all right. Well, Mia, let's start with you if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. I had no idea I was surrounded by so many filmmakers. I went to film school. I'm a huge film fan, so we all need to connect about all of this, seriously. So that makes me feel even more at home. This has been such a warm space. But to tell you a little bit about me, other than the fact that I went to film school, I graduated in 2015. I was raised in a massive religious family. I have 10 siblings. I'm stuck right in the middle. And yeah, that really did shape me a lot. In addition to the fact that my mother is African Caribbean, she was born and raised in St. Croix, one of the Virgin Islands. And then my dad is from Los Angeles. He's half Mexican, half white. So I am Black, white, and Mexican. And I was born and raised in the island of Guam. And the Guam is a very tiny island near the Philippines, near Japan. It's a US territory. So I'm a third culture kid, is what people like me are called, people who have parents from two very different cultures, but I'm raised in a culture that's separate from my parents. So it was a lot to kind of like figure out. I've had identity issues basically since I was a child.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you when, like, you know, the people who are around you, you know, everyone around me was majority brown like me, but they could all tell based on the crown on my head, my hair, that I am not, in fact, Filipino or Chamorro, which are the native people of Guam, or Asian. So my whole life, I've always been asked, where are you from? And so I feel like that question has sometimes been an exciting one. It leads to conversations, and sometimes it has felt very heavy. But now that I'm almost 30, it's become like the reason why I'm able to now live in Portugal, because I don't feel tied to any one place. And I think that as we grow older and we heal and we learn about ourselves and we step into our own, it becomes easier and easier to take things that once felt like a deficit and turn them into a strength. And so I feel like being a third culture kid has become something that has given me a lot of global freedom. And I just feel like I'm at home. I can make myself feel at home no matter where I am. So that's been great. I also grew up in a very religious family. I am no longer religious. And so that has been a massive journey for me. And I also grew up in a very conservative family as well. That was very against higher education and going to college, very much against the system and, like, you know, just do your own thing. You know, my parents went to an island in the middle of nowhere in like the 80s. So they very much were like, we don't need all of this other stuff. We just want our island home. We don't, you know, we want things to be simple. So I am the first and only of all of my siblings to go to college and graduate. And I graduated as valedictorian of my class. And I was the one of two Black people in the entire school. Wow. And that shaped me as well, you know. And sometimes I felt like this is great because I stand out. And a lot of times it felt really, really hard to always be the one and the only, and navigating what that's like, because I didn't grow up understanding the Black American experience. And then I moved at 19. I got on a plane alone at 19 and, you know, took myself to school. Like I said, my parents were not in support of me going to school. So I took myself, and it was a rude awakening, learning about like the way that Black people can be treated in America. And I feel like I really have been navigating that. And a lot of that fueled why I moved to Portugal. So that's a little bit about me, a lot of the different things that have shaped me. And yeah, that's me.
Wow, thank you. What an amazing story.
Thank you.
Nia, how about you? Would you like to go next?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to learn about you.
I mean, I guess in terms of the things that shaped me, as you know, we moved around a lot as a kid, grew up in predominantly white spaces. So being a person of color in those spaces has been a really interesting experience. I think a lot of the times it made me want to like kind of curl into myself and become small. But then going to college and being around more diverse groups of people, I like had my first Black friend when I got to college. So just things like that have kind of widened my experience. And then traveling after I graduated, I did the whole digital nomad thing. So getting that global experience also was very formative, and just kind of seeing the different ways people live and all that. So I don't know if that was
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Thanks. Jasmine, would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in the Northeast, and we moved around a lot. At least it felt like a lot when I was little, because it was my whole life. So I was born in New York, although I don't remember that. I lived in New Jersey and then Maryland, a couple different places in Maryland before moving to Texas, where I am right now. So I actually, first of all, my dad, Karen's husband, is Black African American, and my mother is Mexican. And so I was always very close to my family. And so along with the environment of students that I was with, I think figuring out, two different familial cultures as well, because they're very different, just spending time with my different sides of my family. But actually in school, I had predominantly white school that I went to. I also had a predominantly Black school that I went to. And I felt, maybe even more separate at a predominantly Black school, because I didn't feel like I was as basically as Black as them, you could say. Like I was neither white nor fully Black. So I also was, just felt a little bit off. But thankfully, I mean, I've always been a people person. So I think I've always just loved trying to fit in, trying to, just be where everybody else is. And I don't think I've ever truly seen that as a negative thing. Even now, I very much see myself as someone who, I want to be open to all the different cultures. And I think that's it. It's exciting. Not only do I, when I'm there, do I want to, maybe mold, I guess, but it's exciting to be in different places. When I moved to Texas for middle school and high school, actually in San Antonio, there's a lot of Mexican American culture here. So that was also different, but very nice. And then obviously going to culture, just completely diverse, all kinds of people. And so I think that it's been cool to have all kinds of different environments, and I want more.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. Monica, how about you next?
Sure. My story is actually very similar to Jasmine's and Mia's after you guys are talking. My dad is Indian and my mother is Filipina. I was born and raised in DC. My parents live in the same house as they've lived since I was born, and I live 1 mile down the street for them. So in that sense, I have a lot of consistency, but I relate to both of them so much because when I was with my Indian family, I never felt Indian enough. When I was with my Filipino family, I never felt Filipino enough. And it's strange because I look more Indian, but I actually completely understand the Filipino language of Tagalog. So, I would visit family, and as welcoming as they were, I just never felt like I fit in. And going to a high school in DC, it was also predominantly white, and I had a lot of white friends. I also had a lot of Black friends, but I just never fit in. I was always just kind of this brown girl in whatever group I was hanging out with, and it just felt very difficult. I would it didn't feel good not having like a home. And just like Jasmine was saying, if I was hanging out with Indian or Filipino people, I actually felt like you stuck out even more.
Mhm.
I think the biggest issue that I had with my background was that I was growing up in America, which is very different from India, very different from the Philippines. And my dad specifically had a lot of expectations of his Indian daughter, except that just wasn't how I was being raised whatsoever. So this is actually why I really appreciate the opportunity to talk on this podcast, because in both cultures, it just wasn't the norm to have these open conversations about feelings and emotions and fears. Like, I just did not have this relationship. Definitely not with my dad, but even with my mom before I left for college. I think that's more of an American thing versus Asian culture. You know, you don't really talk about emotions in that way. So I've changed so much, and now I am at a point where I totally embrace it. And now with my husband being Black, so my children are now Indian, Filipino, and Black. I love that they get to experience all the different cultures. You know, my son is learning Filipino words from my mom, and the other ones are trying Indian, and I love it. You know, I'm so proud of my background. I'm proud that my kids get to share in all these experiences. And now we kind of joke that my husband's the only one who only has one racial background.
He's the outcast.
Yeah, he's the minority for a change. You know, as much Indian food as he eats, he definitely still not Indian.
That's
So
awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation and just make sure that people know how important it is to be able to talk before, you know, going off to college.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I'll have to chime in on a couple of things. You were talking about moms and dads not having important conversations. And I've gotten a number of comments on social media where women would say, gosh, I wish I had this with my mom, from all backgrounds. You know, I don't know if sometimes it's a cultural thing. A lot of times it's learned. You know, they parent the way they were parented, unless it's intentional, unless someone says, hey, here's a different way. And they say, oh, I need to learn how to do that. And so we're hoping that this is a forum that motivates moms and dads. You know, I invited men and women to listen to this because I would love for it to affect the way people parent. And, you know, some people don't have the blessing of having their parents around. So if someone is a parental figure, you know, I say, you know, please listen and take what you can from this conversation. On another note, I will say that Indian weddings rock, because and Monica and Anthony's wedding, you know, she served both. She had an Indian wedding and a Catholic wedding all in the same ceremony. And I'm telling you, it was a party and a half when this beautiful Black man rode up to the wedding on a white horse in Indian garb. And yes, I am partial. It's my nephew, this beautiful Black man that I'm referring to, that she married. But it was awesome. You know, we live in an age now where people are melding together and just appreciating who each other is. And I'd love to see more of that. So Mallory, you're next, please.
Well, like Nia said, we grew up moving around a lot. I would say that the most important place that we lived in was Amsterdam. I was in first and second grade there, and we went to an international school. And just on the topic of cultures, all of my friends looked so different that I didn't notice that I was different for the first time. Like one of my best friends was from Texas, another one was from Australia, another one was from West Africa, and we just all played together, and we didn't really notice. I mean, we noticed our differences, but it wasn't something that was like a big important thing. And then when we moved back to the States, that's where I became so aware of all the predominantly white spaces and not seeing not just people that looked like me, but just people that looked different in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really confusing to me as to just why that was and why people feel like they're not allowed in certain spaces, just like stuck in my head. By the time I got to college, Mia and I both went to Santa Clara in the Bay Area, and that was also the first time I had Black friends. And then just seeing the diversity of Blackness. I had one of my friends was half Jamaican, half Chinese, and then another friend was like Creole, and another friend was from Ghana. So then just seeing the diversity of Blackness was also extremely important to me and like life-changing. And so I think my passion now is to just encourage people to spread out. Like, we can be in any space that feels right for us. We're not supposed to stay in one space. I think that the history of segregation has kind of like embedded in our DNA to a point where people feel like they're not allowed in certain areas of the country and of the world. And so I'm very passionate about like encouraging young women who maybe don't think that they can leave home, but have always wanted to know what it's like living on a different coast in a different country. I wanted to go to London to study so badly, but I was so scared to leave the US that I like want to encourage anyone who wants to just get out to like go. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, again, I am honored to have all of you, and we're going to get right into the questions now. So first question, if your college years were a movie, a book, or a song title, what would it be and why? And you are allowed to make one up. Monica, would you like to go first?
Sure. I actually have a really good one. I would say the movie would be Home Alone, because you have that excitement, like, oh, I'm by myself. I can do what I want. I don't have to listen to my parents. And you just, no rules. But then at the same time, you have that fear, like, I don't know anybody. Am I safe? I mean, minus the 2 burglars who are chasing you. That happened in college. But then at the end of the movie, like, he realized how much comfort he had just being home with his family, and there's still the support system. So, you have that excitement of the independence, but at the end of the day, you still need your family, and, you can't survive without them.
Yeah, I like that one. How about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this, the first line that came to my head from a song was, the line is, time keeps on slipping into the future. And so the song is Fly Like an Eagle. But I think that that's what I would choose, because I do feel like time is slipping into the future, but the title being Fly Like an Eagle is, it's something that I've learned. I'm 26 and I'm still in college. So I've learned that, even though time does feel like it's moving, and I'm getting older and I'm still, doing this thing, but I'm in my journey to fly like an eagle. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. And if you want to share about your special circumstance, the first school you went to just closed on you, right? While you were attending, they just went bankrupt.
Yeah. So when I graduated high school in 2015, I did go to a film school in Santa Fe. I was there for 2 years, and it was the best experience ever. And the school, after my second year, or during my second year, they told us that they were going to be closing down, and we were all devastated. And so I had to, figure out from then what was my next step. What was I going to do? So it has been a challenge, and a lot of learning to figure out where I am. But I'm happy that I'm still learning, and I'm excited to finish my degree.
Nice. Wonderful. All right. So Nia, do you have one?
Yeah, I'm thinking of like not really the movie Mulan, but like the reflection song. I think for me, college, like I felt out of place most of my college experience. And I think there was like a sense of isolation, but that also caused a lot of self-reflection that I think led to a lot of growth. So yeah, I think that would be my song, or my
Your combo, song and movie.
song and movie, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valerie, what about you?
Let It Go from Frozen is the song that came
So
to
what is
my
it you're letting
mind.
go?
I think all 4 years, or even just from senior year of high school to freshman year, and then moving forward, was rapid change. Like I felt like my identity was changing so fast, and by the time I would get used to a version of myself, something like I would become new. I was the amount of friends and the friends that I had freshman year by senior year who I graduated friends with, like rapidly different. And I like had changed my major. I had just like so many different identities and hats, and learning to like detach from an old version of myself so that I could allow myself to like change and grow into like who I wanted to become. I think I had to learn to just like let go of different ideas of myself and people that were not in alignment with who I was trying to be.
Yeah, cool. All right, Mia, you got a good one?
I unfortunately don't have a great one, because I don't know why this question is super hard for me. I think it's because I started college a very specific version of myself, kind of like what Mallory was saying, but then I ended college a very different version. So it's hard to find one thing that captures that. But one of the songs that came to mind, the best answer I could have right now is Empire State of Mind by Alicia Keys and Jay-Z. And I think it just comes to mind because 19 years old, and I worked so hard. I was a housekeeper and a nanny during high school to save money to go to school, and barely got myself on that plane to get to college. And I think anytime I felt distraught or distressed, like you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out how to like apply to FAFSA, and like I would put on this song, and something about Alicia Keys belting out like New York, concrete jungle, where dreams are made of. I was like, I'm going to make my dreams happen. This is my ticket. And I remember feeling so light when I got on that plane, when I walked through like security doors and was like, I'm doing this. And it really empowered me a lot. But unfortunately, by the end of college, I was like a shell of who I was. Like that strong, independent, fierce, confident girl was like, I really lost myself by the end of college. And so I don't know what song I would use to capture the end, but it would be a sad song for sure. And I hope that's not too dark, but I just want to be honest, like not everybody ends triumphant. And like if you are ending in that way, I don't know, I think sometimes it could feel like you're a failure because you don't like have this triumphant ending. Like a lot of people end college and these people know they're going to grad school. These people know they're doing this. These people already landed their job. And like unfortunately, that wasn't for me. I remember feeling like a lot of people thought I was successful because I had completed a massive senior thesis and I was valedictorian and like all this stuff. But on the inside, I was not doing well. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about mental health. And I'm so passionate about creating spaces where people can share honestly, because it's just like, I don't know about you all, but being a Black woman, like, I just feel like I have to be excellent all the time. And I have to like present that I always have it together. And I just wish that someone would have given me the space to say that I wasn't okay. And in college, it was like, I had to be just like, but you're valedictorian. You produced the best senior thesis. Like you got all these awards. And it's like, but I'm not happy. But there was no space for that. It's just like, well, these accolades are all that matters. So you should just always feel like Sasha Fierce. You know what I mean? Like
I remember Sasha Fierce.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't feel like Sasha Fierce. So yeah, I just think giving Black women permission to like say, hey, I'm not okay. Like I'm not actually feeling on top of the world right now just because I ticked all these boxes. So, but Empire State of Mind, when I tap into that song, I remember like I can kind of rekindle that strong girl who has big dreams, like she's still there,
Yeah.
So that's for me.
Yeah. And I totally appreciate that. And thank you for sharing the truth. That's why we're here. We want to share our real stories. We're trying to encourage conversation about honesty, coming from a real place and being real and vulnerable, for these moms and daughters to be vulnerable with each other. Hopefully the parents will say, this is what I was really feeling where I was pretending not to, let's break down the facades and the pretense, because that's so unhealthy and it's not helpful to anybody.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I love the story of, that song just empowered you like, hey, I'm going to do this. And, I'm sure a lot of the challenges and the obstacles that you came upon without any support just sort of drained you, So
100%.
yeah, that's something that parents need to know,
Yeah.
whether you're on board with what your adult son or daughter wants to do, they need your support. They need your parental love and, a place to come, whether they're doing what you want them to or not. I think my daughters told me at one point that children are not an appendage of their parents. They get to a certain age and, our job is to prepare them to fly like an eagle.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So on to the next one. And I think, Monica, you sort of touched on this. When we start something new, a new adventure, we usually have notions and expectations of what this is going to be like. So I want to know, what was an expectation you had about college where the reality turned out to be less than positive? And then what was an expectation that you had that turned out to be better than you imagined?
I think, just like you were saying, it's, parents feel obligated to give their kids these tools, like go off to college and all of a sudden you're independent and they don't need your help anymore. And I think once I got to college and in the 4 years that I was there, I kept telling myself that the issues that I was facing were things that I had to figure out because I was an adult, because I was in college. And looking back, I just realized that that was probably the most important time to reach back to your support system from home and really ask for help, and that it's okay to ask for help. I only went to school in Syracuse, so it was a short flight to get home, but I noticed, I go to college and like I'm missing a lot of family events. My mom's mom passed away in the Philippines my sophomore year, so I got to fly home for the funeral, but 2 days later, I flew right back to Syracuse and I had to just move on without having that opportunity to grieve and to also to be around family who was also grieving, because my mom and my brother were back in DC. And even now, I'm 38 years old, and now actually more than ever, because I have 2 small kids, I realize that it is okay to need your home base. And just because you're in college does not mean that you have to figure everything out on your own.
Good point. Absolutely.
The second question was an expectation that
was better than, yeah.
I think I handled things really well. I mean, I had done laundry at home, but one thing that you're not really used to is doing laundry in a dorm where hundreds of other kids are doing it. And quite frankly, I was very proud of myself that I did my laundry. I didn't lose anything, but like little things like that, you kind of just figure out the little things that you don't realize that your parents actually do for you on a day-to-day basis. I figured it out. I got through 4 years, I graduated, I got a degree, and I'm a lot more capable of things that I didn't know if I was really going to be able to do. I ate every day. I
That's a big plus.
at the classes, all those little things. I was nervous about it, but I was proud of myself. And even now I've learned to be an adult knowing that I still have a support system that I can fall back on.
Cool. Mallory, did you have any expectations, some that turned out to be less positive and some that turned out to be more?
Yeah, I think it's the same expectation that can answer both questions, actually. So Nia and I were raised in a very conservative Christian community in San Diego. It feels like the Bible Belt of the South, but like with surfers. And I left my Christian high school with a bunch of classmates who had like were basically married already, and like were going into their Christian universities with their like husbands and wives, or like going to pursue what I learned from my mother was called an MRS degree, like to find their husbands in college. And I had never really had guy attention in high school and middle school. So I think I really like was looking at college to find like my future husband, even though I definitely wanted some idea of a career or like to pursue a higher education. I definitely had find my man at the forefront of my mind. And there were plenty of men to find there, but like I think I was really surprised by just how a lot of the men I was like encountering, what they were not looking for their wives.
Yeah. We weren't
And
playing the game.
And so I was continuously getting my heart broken like over and over and over again. And that was something that I felt like I couldn't share with my mom. And because it was like, it was in direct conflict with all of the like things I had learned about being a good Christian woman. And I felt like afraid. I was mostly afraid to tell her because I was afraid that I was going to get blamed. And because I remember telling like one of my good friends about like this guy that broke my heart, and she was like, well, maybe you should be a little bit more, and like gave me whatever like Christian principle that she had given me at the time. And so I left school like still single, but I think that just kickstarted me into being independent and actually realizing like there's so much growth in like being single and like learning who you really are without like defining yourself as like who you are with a partner, and who that partner means to you, and like how that influences your identity. And so I feel like that gave me so much space to really work on myself and like what I actually want, which brought me into this really demanding career that I feel like I've gotten to flourish in because of the time and space that I've had to really get to know myself.
Oh, very good. Mia, what about you?
Oh, this is a good question. And I'm not actually reflecting a lot on my answers because I'm so engrossed in what everyone's saying. I'm just like loving this conversation. But an expectation that was worse off, let me think, goodness. Well, I mean, I experienced a lot of abuse throughout my childhood. As you mentioned in my intro, I'm an abuse survivor. So a lot of things, honestly, were just like amazing. Like people actually gave me kind of not a nickname, but people were like, I was known in the school as somebody who experienced the world like it was Narnia. People were like, why did like Mia just walks around like everywhere is amazing. Like, I mean, I was so happy to have made it. Like it was my goal. Like everyone else was like hanging out when they were a teenager. When I was 14, I was studying till 2 a.m. every morning because I wanted a high SAT score because I needed that scholarship. You know, I was that kid. So I just felt relief and excitement. And maybe the thing that was like negative was I went to a Catholic college. I think that was the only that was kind of the only way that my parents would allow me to leave the house. Basically, I was extremely sheltered, homeschooled, and they were like, you can't go to college, you can't go to college. Okay, fine, like clearly Mia is going to do this, but if you're going to go, you can only go to like one of these 3 Catholic colleges. And this was the only Catholic college that had a film program. So of course I had one option. So I go to this college, and a lot of things were great, and I'll give those examples later. But the thing that I think that was most negative was like, while they were really, we had to complete 4 academic years in 3 years. So it was a 3-year, like very intense school with no summer breaks.
Wow.
And so I thought I was going to this, like, you know, they want us to build careers. They want us to have a cultural impact. They want us to get into the film industry. You know, I'm close to LA. They really want to encourage us. But actually, alongside all these rigorous film classes where I'm like really learning how to hustle and be a producer and like learning how to be in film, I had to take a ton of religion classes where I was being bombarded by the message that my true calling in life is to get married and have children. As a woman, if I'm going to be a good Catholic, then I had better have babies and I had better get married and it better be soon. And so there was so much conflict inside of me as this ambitious girl, young woman who worked so hard since I was young to go to college. And like I said, I'm the only one of 10 children, 11 total children. And I had parents that were discouraging me going to school. So I had to rustle up a lot of self-belief to go to school and to make it happen. And that's a lot. So when you have these messages that are like continuing to tell you that really, actually, Mia, your place is just build a domestic life, it felt highly conflicting. And so I was like going to these religion classes and being told how to be obedient and submissive. But then I was going to these film classes where I was being told that if I don't like dominate and use my voice and be the hardest working person in the room, then you're not going to make it in the film industry. And that was so exhausting. And I didn't think that I was going to have to experience that. So that was very negative. The positive, I think, was like the school was so small. There's only like 300 people. And so I was able to, you know, someone's always doing a film project over the weekend. And because I was like, there's so few people, like I got to get on a lot of sets. And like roll up my sleeves and learn a lot. I had made so many short films by the time I graduated that, you know, I was just like, I really got a lot of experience while I was there. So that was something that turned out really well.
That's amazing. Do you want to share the name of the school or?
No, I don't encourage people to go there.
Okay.
Don't go there. I mean, the thing is, like, there were professors that were really great and that cared a lot, but I think overall the school didn't do a great job.
Okay.
And a lot of those professors don't work there anymore. So that's why I just wouldn't even recommend
Okay.
it.
Gotcha. Nia, did you have any things that turned out better than you expected or worse?
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to how kind of strict you guys were as parents, and then like kind of the sheltered upbringing that we had, I throughout high school and middle school, like really consumed a lot of media, like TV shows and movies and stuff. And, you know, college is depicted a certain way. So I was really excited for that social aspect of like the parties and all that stuff. But yeah, like when I saw a frat house in action for the first time, I was like, this is disgusting. Like it was so gross. So yeah, I think just kind of the realistic version of the partying and the kind of like unleash, like all these kids are alone for the first time, so it's like an unleashing of just debauchery. Yeah, that was like, I was like, I don't need that. And then for a or something that was kind of negative that turned into a positive, I think would be, I think it was going in with an undefined major. That caused me a lot of stress, and especially because I didn't declare one until I think the middle of my sophomore year. And I felt a lot of pressure from people being like, you have to choose something, you have to choose something. And so it kind of stressed me out. But I think being undeclared allowed me to explore so many different avenues. Like I took biochemistry classes, I took history classes, I took psychology classes and anthropology classes. So I think that allowed me to expand both like the experience I had with other people, because a lot of times at the school, it's like if you're in a certain major, you kind of just get that experience with the people that are also in the major. So I got to experience different people and different schools and different teachers. So I think that ended up being a positive because I learned a lot about a lot of different random things.
Great. And Jasmine, what about you?
So I would say that something that turned out worse or not as great as I expected, I would probably be, it's something that's actually just a life thing, not necessarily just a college thing. But I think in high school, I felt like I wasn't a great student. I was having fun, and I did recognize that, it is high school, so college is going to be a completely different level. And I expected to be that, in college students are figured out, like they are good students, and they have everything together. They know exactly what they're doing. It's very clear, but that's not the case. I very much feel like everyone, and this is kind of the positive as well, is that people are great to just be in an environment with like people who are doing all kinds of different majors, all kinds of different things. Nobody really is doing the same thing, but we're all in it together. So and no one has it completely under wraps. Like no one is absolutely sure of what they're doing. I even think about some moments at I go to UTSA currently at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And sometimes we have high school tours come through the campus. And it's so funny to realize that they look at me as a, wow, like that's a college student, and like they look so cool. Like they look like a college student. And I think about that. I'm like, I think I felt exactly that way. Like, wow, they have it put together. But now that I'm there, I realize that it's, we're gonna be a mess for life. That's just how it is, because things change, and things are not always perfect. So kind of in a way, both a positive.
Yeah. That's very true, and thanks for bringing that up. I'd like to recap for our listeners some of the things on our list of one thing every girl should know based on the answers that you guys have given so far. The first is that it's a time of growth. You go away to college, you are not going to come away the way you entered. And so just expect that. Like you said, don't have expectations of, I got to do this, I got to do that. Let it evolve, just grow with it. Try to find what works for you. Try to tap into your support system to help you discover your gifts and your talents, what's not working, what's making you feel unhealthy, or what's, destroying you, and talk about it and try to navigate that and find your way around it. All of you have talked about meeting challenges. So it's not like you run from the challenge. You just navigate it and you grow from it, and you come out on the other side a different person, hopefully more mature, and with some life lessons learned. So very cool. The next one, I think Mia, you answered this. It's did you choose the college you attended, which you told us it was chosen for you? And what encouragement would you give to a girl about the college application and selection process? Mallory, you and I had a conversation about this. Someone that you knew who was applying to college, someone who's going off to college right now. would you speak to that? What encouragement would you give to a student who's applying now, or maybe has gone through the application process and didn't get into the school they wanted?
Oh, yeah, I was talking to a friend's little brother who's about to go off to school, and he was saying that in his class there were, have you seen like those reaction videos of people finding out they get into certain schools? So they're often filming those with other people around, and just that awkward, they don't post these, but the awkwardness of like, maybe you didn't get in and everyone watched you not get in, and like how that affects how you think about yourself, especially if you were expecting to go to whatever school you wanted. I remember when I was a senior in high school, my friend Catherine had done like all these really cool extra or after school activities, and she had like 4.0. She thought she'd get in anywhere, and she only got into like the school that she applied in as a joke. And that like wrecked her self-esteem and her identity. And I would say that it's not a reflection of who you are. First, you got into that school for a reason, and you might find that that was the perfect match for you. I didn't really want to go to Santa Clara. I wanted to go to Chapman, but they didn't give me any money. So Santa Clara gave me scholarship money and grant money. So that's where I wound up going. And that was not my top school, but I'm so glad I went, because the friends that I came out with are still some of my best friends today. And I wouldn't have changed it at all. So I don't know if that answers the
It
question.
absolutely does. And, when we had that conversation, I reflected on when you and Nia were applying, there was a huge clue as to which school you got into or not, because if, out of the applications you filled out, if the big envelope came in the mail, that meant you were in. Now, if you got a letter size envelope, that was a rejection letter, but only you and your family knew. I would also say that, Mallory was the first one going to college, and high school counselors were like, oh, you have to take this many AP classes, and you have to do this many extracurricular activities. You have to be on this team and that team, and go on this mission trip and blah, blah, blah. And, her junior year started with us all being frazzled. And I just stepped back and said, wait a minute, this is way too much. And so we did what made sense. And I think that's how you approach it. You do what makes sense. You do what you can do. You do what works for you, and you'll get into the school that you're supposed to be at. I can't imagine that whole reaction video thing. That sounds heartbreaking to me. And I don't know why people would do that to themselves, but I don't know. Does anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
May I add one more thing? Also, there's when they tell you to apply for colleges, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was like your reach school and then like your safety school. And I remember a few of my friends at Santa Clara who are Latinx were telling me that their white counselors, discouraged them from applying to their reach schools because they either assumed they couldn't afford it, or that just like going off their demographic didn't think that they were smart enough to get in. And so I also think that maybe that if there might be schools that don't seem like realistic or like that you can get into, but that you should still apply to the dream school, even if it feels like unattainable. And if you don't get in, or if you do get in, that still doesn't define who you are. But definitely like pursue your wildest dreams. I mean,
yeah, you never know. Anybody else want to chime in about their application process and how that went? Monica, you look like you're about to say something.
I mean, I feel very lucky. My high school guidance counselor was incredibly involved in our whole process. I mean, she looked at all of our grades, our SAT scores, SAT 2s. I don't know if that's still a thing now. I'm very glad social media was just not a thing during this process, because this video, the reaction video, sounds terrible.
Yeah.
My mom, I just remember her telling me I was not going to Miami and she did not want me to go to the West Coast, and I'm glad that I didn't. So I don't know, I feel like I had some bumpers on where I was allowed to apply, and I'm very lucky I got into Syracuse. It was very cold. I visited in the summertime, and I might have made a different decision if I had visited in the winter. But I remember my RA, my freshman year, told me, make sure you make really good friends, because the winters there are brutal to the point where you really are encouraged not to go outside, because with the wind chill, it would get down to -50 degrees. And I think I took her advice. I made some great friends. And also going back to what you had said a little bit earlier about how you grow a lot in college. One thing that I think is very important for everyone to know before they go to college, there's no rush to figure things out. And that includes making friends. You know, I went to a very small high school. I had 73 girls in my graduating class. And if you weren't friends with those 73 girls, you were not going to have any friends in high school. College is different. Well, depending on the type of college you go to, but Syracuse was a very big school. And there were a lot of people I met right in the beginning. And I thought, okay, these are going to be my friends. And over the next couple of months, especially over the next couple of years, they were all filtered down to the people that I now look at, like my family. Our kids are growing up together. I look at them like truly like sisters. And it took a long time to kind of establish those relationships. And that is totally okay. But going back to answer this question, I think, it's okay if you also go somewhere and after a year you realize it's just not a good fit for you. I didn't have that experience, but I know a lot of people who did, and don't be afraid to make a change.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Great advice. Jasmine, did you have anything to add?
I don't have much to say on the application process itself. I actually, I wanted to apply. I had a list of colleges I wanted to apply to, and I didn't get to them as I wanted to, but I did apply to Santa Fe University of Art and Design, and that's where I ended up going out of high school. And like I said, it did close down. So after that, I guess I did have to go through that process again. And specifically during that last semester when the college closed down, there were a few universities that reached out to us and were trying to help us through transferring from a school that was closing down. But I considered doing that. Many of my peers actually either decided that they weren't even going to finish. They just were going to go into the industry and just start working. And some of them did transfer that semester. And so I was trying to do that. I was trying to, get back into school the next semester, but that's not what ended up happening. And I ended up taking a couple of years off from school and ended up at UTSA, which is actually not a school that was on my list in the first place when I was leaving high school, because it was the school that was in my city, which I did not want. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go fly like an eagle, but now that I'm here, which it was actually because of COVID that I decided to stay in San Antonio, because during the pandemic, I realized, I didn't need to be somewhere else when classes were going to be remote. And
anyway,
and just like Monica said, like, it is really important to have your home base. So I knew that like it was going to be, I did spend a couple of years away. So I was happy to be with my family here in town and, go to UTSA, which is still a great school. So I think at first at UTSA, I was like, man, I never, like, this is not what I wanted. But it's still been a really great experience. And I guess like Mallory said, it wasn't her top choice, but she wouldn't have changed it. And the same for me.
Cool. What about you, Nia? Did you have something to add?
I just think something that stuck with me, I think Monica mentioned this, and then also Mia, you mentioned this in one of your videos about moving abroad, but the fact that like it's not permanent, it doesn't have to be permanent. I think even now, like with big life changes or decisions, I at least fall into this like, oh my God, this is going to be my life forever. Like I have to make sure it's the right thing because I'm stuck with it. So just knowing that if it doesn't fit, you can leave, you can move, you can change. And I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, thanks. Mia, I know you spoke to how you chose your college, but is there anything you want to add to that question?
Alongside the lines of like being flexible, I think I want to talk about why people don't like being flexible so that you can notice it when it creeps up. Because I think it's so important to allow yourself to pivot and change, even if it might take you an extra semester or two to finish your degree because you decided to change. And I saw this a lot with my peers after we graduated, people realizing that they hated their degree, that they actually don't like the field that they're in. But there's that sunk cost fallacy. It's this belief that because I've already invested so much time and money and energy in this degree, in this career, in this job, that it feels like such a waste to change and pivot and go a different path because we're, for some reason, think of our lives as always about the most efficient option. Like, yes, it's not efficient to change careers or to change your degree completely and do a 180. There's nothing efficient about that. But since when was your life supposed to be about doing the most efficient route?
Yeah.
And I think I've been musing on this. I think part of this is like capitalism and us like always needing to have a good ROI. Like we need to have a return on our investment, you know. And one of the reasons why I didn't pivot, which is my biggest regret, is that I feel good about now. But I just want to name that, like, looking back after 1 year of being in college, like, and going to the school that my parents told me I had to go to, that would have been a great opportunity to then go to a different school because they had no control over my life at that point, right? And I could have decided to move and they wouldn't even have known, and it doesn't matter because I was paying my own bills. But I think a lot of times we operate from that place of still kind of acting like children in a sense, and we forget that we're grown. Like we forget that we're grown and that at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your decisions. And so I remember talking to my friend who's working in insurance and he hates it. And he's like, but I've already been at this company for so long and I'm going to get a promotion. And I was just like, but you hate it there. Like you hate it. Yeah. And since when is our happiness less important than, I mean, I know student loans can be a big stressor, but like, I would rather feel happy at my job that I had to go back to school for 4 years to go and obtain than spend the next 6 years of my life doing something I hate. Right. And it's just like, remember that your life is not about the most efficient route. It's actually about your fulfillment and your happiness. And that's the most important thing. So don't worry about, well, everyone else is getting a job like right after college and I'm still not sure I even want to finish school yet. Like, then you do you.
Right. Good. That's a good word. And it made me think of something. When Mallory and Nia were applying for, well, I guess it was Mallory applying for college. I was talking to a lady that I knew. We weren't especially friends, but I knew her, and her kids at that time were adults. They had finished college, and she gave me some advice. She said, well, I told my kids, all 3 of them, just pick something that makes sense where you can have a good job, put your head down, work through it and stick with it. And, you know, that's the way a lot of people live. And I felt bad for her kids, you know, because like you said, that, you know, life is meant to be lived, not to pick something that, you know, has great job opportunities and just do it until you can retire and then live, because who knows how much time probably not much time because you're so stressed out and you've lived so stressed and you have heart disease and all the others that come with that. So yeah, so good word. I think, I hope parents and kids are listening. we'll take that to heart and discuss it. We're going to move on to, we talked a little bit about social activity. Nia was talking about the gross parties. I read a quote on social media that I thought was pretty profound, and it said, "You don't have to subscribe to other people's definition of fun." So my question for you guys, first of all, I also wrote that principle made me think of Alicia Cara's song Here. Do you guys remember that? Where, and for those of you that don't know, there was a music video to go with it, and the lyrics described her, and you could see on the video where she had gone to a party with some friends and she was not having a good time. And she was just saying all the stuff that was going on that she wasn't enjoying. And so I'll be over here, yes, here in the corner, not talking to anybody. And, I appreciated the fact that that wasn't her scene and that wasn't what she really wanted to do, but she went because her friends were going. And, as her mom, if she had talked to me about it, I would have encouraged her, well, do something that you do enjoy. Let your friends go to that party and then get together with your friends when the party's over or the next day. But don't put yourself in a position where you're not enjoying it just to be with your friends. So I'm going to ask you guys about the social life, parties and what you considered fun then versus what you considered fun now. And, I know a lot of schools can be known as the party school, and that is usually where people drink a lot and smoke a lot of weed and whatever else they do. So this should be interesting. Mallory, why don't you go first?
Why me? I'm kind of like what Monica was saying earlier about like picking your friends, because I had come from such a sheltered home and community, and then coming into like all of this freedom, and like just being so excited to have friends in general that were like so cool and like partied and didn't care and it was whatever. Like I wound up in this group of girls that did not reflect what I thought was fun. I do like having a lot of fun social, I like a party, but like the frat parties that Nia was talking about, just like they were disgusting. I did not feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe. Like it just was nasty in every single way you can think of it. And so as I started to detach from those friendships, I became friends with a lot of the people who were in like the student activist groups and the rock climbing groups. Like they were more into community engagement and physical activity. And then when they would have parties, I had fun because we were playing games, or we were watching like something really funny on TV, like and maybe including some drinking with that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And certainly after you were 21.
Certainly. But it wasn't, it didn't feel like a waste of my time. And it did feel like I was strengthening relationships that actually mattered to me and that I still have to this day. So the activity of drinking was still there. But then it was also, there were enough kids too in those groups that didn't partake, and they weren't made to feel bad or ashamed. Whereas like those kids in the frat party culture would have felt pressured to drink. So I think Monica made such a good point of just like being very thoughtful about the friends that you make, because that will definitely influence the sort of fun that you're being brought into.
Yeah. Monica, did you want to expound on that about the partying and?
Sure. So I was very social in college. The frat parties, they were so disgusting. I went all the time. I'm not going to lie. But again, I was so lucky that the friends that I made, like my best friend now was actually, she lived right next door to me my freshman year. And then we lived together sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I'm lucky that my close group of friends that I really bonded with right in the beginning are the people that kind of stuck around. So, we would go to frat parties, we would pack up sandwiches because we didn't have money to like buy popcorn, but we would go to the movies and we would go to the mall, we would go to dinner. Like I just was social in every aspect. And it's really funny now because now my definition of fun is getting a piece of chocolate cake and just sitting on the couch by myself watching Netflix. So yeah, but like, just like Mallory said, if you go experience something and you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel like it is a good use of your time, you just don't have to do it.
Right.
Even if your close friends do want to do something that you don't want to do. At one point in college, a lot of people were going to the bars. I didn't turn 21 yet, but I didn't like to do it. It was a little bit more rowdy, believe it or not, than the frat parties. And I used to just stay in the apartment every Thursday night when everybody else was going out. And I still had my fair share of fun. I got to pick and choose where I was going. And I don't know. I think you just need to be okay and comfortable with just saying no to stuff. I think a big thing is people get FOMO
Yeah.
of missing out. There's just going to be so many opportunities, and you have to remind yourself that you don't have to do everything just because it's there.
What about you, Mia? Did you have any wild parties at your school?
So my school was really small, like 300 people, and they had a very strict no alcohol on campus policy. And a lot of the kids that went to that school were also like very compliant, although I've heard that things have drastically changed now. But so there wasn't really actually a lot of opportunity to like, get drunk, or there were no frat parties, there's something like that. Everyone at that school was pretty academically driven because we had to do so many units in such a short amount of time. Like, for instance, I think on average people do 18 units over like a semester, and I was doing 10 units in 10 weeks.
Wow.
There was no time to party. And because I was also an overachiever and was trying to like get on set film experience, any spare time I had was spent working. So that's the workaholic in me. So if there's anybody listening to this that was kind of raised to be a workaholic, I had to work since I was a young child, working in the food industry, to help provide for my family. Like I said, I was from a big family, and we always had financial struggles. So I kind of came into college very much like, I'm here to get a degree so I can get a good job so that I can finally not financially struggle.
Yeah.
And I do think that's something that a lot of us don't get to talk about. I think because there's so much shame in having financial challenges.
Yeah.
Even if you inherited them from your family, like I didn't choose to be financially challenged as a child, right? But I carried a lot of shame, and I carried a lot of stress. Like I felt like I'm not allowed to have fun because no one's going to pay my bills. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have a home base. So, a lot of kids, when they started slacking off and partying off campus, like they would go home and know that they had somewhere to go and their parents were going to come pick them up. I didn't have that option. So just for anybody that's listening, I think what I want to say is, if you're somebody who like struggles to have fun because of the trauma you've been through or the struggles you've been through, to find ways to let yourself have fun that feels good to you.
Exactly.
And to know that it's okay and that you're safe to have fun and that it's all going to work out. Because, I left college super burned out, and then I entered the workforce right away and burned out in the workforce. And I'm on my own recovery of learning how not to be a workaholic. That's a big reason why I moved to Portugal. Like, people here take the entire month of August off. It's just like normal, like, yes, like vacationing, it's a right. Everyone has this right. It's baked into the law. So I really wanted to go to a culture where it's like not only okay, but encouraged to take a break. So just for anybody who can relate to my experience of feeling like they need to get a degree so they can save their family from financial distress, and you carry that pressure, that you deserve to have fun too. And like, it's not fair for you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I look back and I wish that I let myself have more fun, because all of a sudden I was graduating and I realized I had no fun.
Yeah.
And I was like really sad about that. And one of my reclaiming things that I did when Mallory mentioned wanting to go to London, I wanted to go to London and study acting so badly when I was in high school, but wanted to go I was like, I'll go the practical route and do film producing because then it's like more likely to get a job. But I went to London in June to see Beyonce. And I went alone, and it was a dream of mine in college to go on a solo trip, but I didn't let myself because money, because I should be working, I should be building my resume. Going to that trip felt like a reclamation and a healing. It was so healing to go alone. So just know that like your life isn't over either. Like there's always opportunities to like find and do the things that you didn't get to do. And so that was really amazing. And London is epic. It's amazing. I can't wait to go back. And yeah, so it's all good. I don't want to always like share these sad things, but college was really hard for me. So I want to be like, and you know, I'm out here finding my way, and it's good. It's all good.
It is all good. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you added that part because, you know, everybody's got a different story and somebody's going to be able to relate to yours for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up money because that is one of the questions. Now, you know, we're having such a good time talking that I've gone over the hour I promised you guys. Is everybody good for a couple more questions?
I'm good.
Okay, great. Nia, did you have something to talk about fun?
I think what I want to say about this, and I don't really know how to articulate it, so hopefully it makes sense, but I think like learning what you think is fun, like going to those parties, and I still went, even though I was like, this is gross, but I don't think I had explored like the things I actually liked to do. It was like somebody handed me like, this is fun. And I was like, okay. So I think taking time to like explore and actually figure out what you think is fun and what you enjoy is important, rather than just like accepting what is supposed to be fun. I think that's kind of where I encourage people to branch out a little bit and see what works for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does make sense.
I think with also what Mia's saying about learning what is fun, if you actually care about your studies, you might like, your attention might shift. I think if a lot of people are going to school and they're studying like, not that you can't love this, but like finance, and you hate what you're doing during the daytime, then like it's maybe more easy for you to fall into the like frat party lifestyle, even if you don't like it, because it's distracting you from the things that you don't like during the day. But if you like, yeah, if you absolutely love what you're doing and you want to like show up to class or show up to those projects like with a clear head and enthusiasm and not hungover, then it might affect the choices that you make the night before if you actually love what you're doing.
That's a good point. Jasmine, did you have anything to add about fun?
Yeah, I think that what the last thing that Mallory said actually relates, because I went to an art school, so it was a small school. We didn't have frats and sororities, and everyone there, you know, is passionate about their art and passionate about what they want to do. So I felt very lucky because it being at the school with the people, like I lived on campus, and just being there was the fun thing. Like going to school and living with my friends, that was what the fun thing was. Like I didn't need parties. We also, I mean, also in Santa Fe, it is kind of a smaller city, and there's a lot of old people, but there was really cool art things just to see. So we would, you know, go together to Meow Wolf. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. That was a really fun thing for us to do. And then now actually, and I'm actually, you know, still very close to my friends from Santa Fe, even though they're all over the world right now. Actually, some are not even in the country. But now at UTSA, I think because, I do have established friends, I think I'm less of a freshman mentality that like, oh, I need to find friends. I need to like find my group. I feel more relaxed and able to make friends wherever and realize, or at least meet people wherever and decide if I like these people, if I want to continue being friends. I don't feel forced to like, oh yeah, these people are the people who I happen to be with and I have to be doing whatever they're doing. So I think that's exactly what everybody's been saying, is that you can choose what you want to do and the people who you want to be with. And I feel comfortable knowing that, even if I don't spend that much time with maybe I have multiple groups and they're all different, they don't really do the same things. I feel comfortable knowing that I can, still stay connected to them, in the future, and I can, still have a strong friendship with them. So
Yeah.
that's really my thing. Is I think my definition of fun is just being with people that I enjoy being with.
Yeah. And I love that. So I hope that the girls will take away from this, or, guys too, if they're listening, students, is that, you define what's fun for you. And if you don't know, you try different things. But one thing we do encourage you to do is bypass the things that make you feel uncomfortable. If it's unhealthy and you feel like this isn't for you, then you don't have to do it. So this will lead us into a little more serious section, safety. I think parties is a good segue to that, because a lot of bad things happen at parties sometimes. Unfortunately, we live in a culture where gun violence and sexual assault are a concern and something that parents need to discuss with their students. Gun violence it certainly wasn't as prevalent, when you guys first went to college as it is now, and it's just getting worse. Sexual assault, I think, has been around forever. And there are things that, parents really need to discuss with their students, both boys and girls, and I just wonder if I can ask each of you to offer a safety tip or practice that you would tell a young woman or even a young guy going to college about how to protect yourself, what to look for, what are danger signs, what did you see that maybe you could say to them, hey, you want to pay attention when this happens and stay away from that. Monica, did you have one?
I feel like I've said this quite a few times, but there's so many reasons why it's important to find that group of friends that you're gonna spend your time with. Besides just, like levels of comfort and emotional support. But I am a firm believer that there is safety in numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm 5'4". I've always been very petite, and going to these rowdy parties where people are drinking, it's just a lot of people. And obviously people lose their inhibitions when they're drinking. I have had friends where we do not do anything unless we do it together. And that includes going to the bathroom. Again, things were so different. Like, thank goodness we had cell phones in college, but it's just like, I wouldn't go anywhere without my cell phone. If I was going on a date with somebody, she was that person who would call me during the date to make sure everything is fine. And, we would have little codes here and there if it was a date that I wanted to end a little bit earlier, or you go on double dates. You always text, and I still do this to this day. I always tell people to text me or call me when they get home. You just have to communicate with each other. We had said this before we started recording, but I thankfully had drank before college. And I feel like this could be kind of a touchy subject because I know some people just might not agree with this decision, but growing up with Filipino cousins, I did drink when I was under 21. It's, totally accepted in the Philippines. And honestly, I'm glad that I did, because when I got to college, I started to see people who for the first time they're drinking is at a frat party with no real friends, just around a lot of drunk people. And it is so terrifying for me because you just never know what is going to happen. I would like to think that everybody was raised a certain way, but at the end of the day, they weren't. And you just really need to make sure that there is someone who's always going to have your back. And if that means you're really not even going to drink a lot until you find that person, I think it is really worth it to take the time to figure it out.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I love the having code words and having check-in, assurances that where someone is, and you expect them to be back at a certain time, and you want them to check in with each other. Now in the time of Uber, you can share your Uber ride. Mallory was telling me she always shares her Uber rides with Nia. So I think those things are really necessary. You need to think safety. Hopefully you won't need it, but it's a good practice and it can be helpful. You talked about people getting drunk for the first time and being alone and vulnerable. That is a very important topic that parents need to be talking about with, sons and daughters, because a lot of times it's the sons that prey on vulnerable girls. And, have that conversation with your son that that's not okay just because you're in college and just because you're in a fraternity. What you eat and drink at these parties. If you go to these parties and you don't know these people, something could be in the food or drink. We've all heard of roofies, and, it happens. And so just be aware and be cautious. If you decide to go to a party and check it out, it's okay not to eat or drink something that's not closed, and, you open it yourself to drink it. Just know that these things happen. Yeah. So, what about you, Nia? Did you have a tip that you would share?
Yeah, I think one, and I think this one is really important just in general, is to always really listen to your intuition.
Mm.
And don't be afraid of like looking stupid or making a scene or not wanting to stick out. But yeah, always listen to your gut. And I think the other part is to look out for other people. Like if you're not drinking, or if you're still sober, or, have your wits about you, and you see something that looks sketchy, it's okay to intervene and look out
Yeah,
for other people.
absolutely. Mm. Mia, what about you? Any tips?
I think this is a basic one, but I saw so many girls in college like just not do it out of convenience, but just don't go walking in the dark. Like, please. I know sometimes people are like, it's just a 10-minute walk. It's simple. It's not an issue, but it's just like you're opening yourself up to unnecessary danger and risk. So I would always make sure that I walked with someone. And if I didn't have that opportunity, I would always call someone and be on the phone with someone while I walked. Always took the most lit route with the most lighting, even if it took longer. I also only ever, again, back to the no frats, but I did drink after I turned 21 with my friends, but it was always with friends that I really trusted. I had a lot of like guy friends that were very protective of me, wouldn't let me have more than 3 drinks. It was actually very annoying. I'm like, can I get drunk at least once? Like, please, like, this is ridiculous. So I always drank, but it was at like restaurants and like, places where we knew the alcohol would be safe. But yeah, I think, yeah, just take your safety really seriously, advocate for yourself. Oh, and don't be afraid to ask for extra support. So I was at part of this play And one of the actors was like really making me uncomfortable, making so many unnecessary advances and offering to drive me home because it was dark again and I didn't have a ride. And so I started asking one of my friends to come and pick me up, so that I could always say, oh, someone's already waiting outside for me. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, don't bother your friend. Like, just take this person up on their offer. But I'm really glad that I didn't feel like, oh, I'm an inconvenience, and just went, hey, I'm not feeling safe. And I would love it if you could pick me up every Tuesday until this play is done.
Yeah.
And they're like, absolutely, no
Yeah.
problem. Like, my friend was so happy to do it. And here I was like questioning if I was going to be inconveniencing him. And he's like, we want you to be safe. We want you to feel safe. And so if there's anyone out there listening that worries about being a burden, especially something this is abuse survivors struggle with, we feel like we're a burden. We feel like we're not allowed to ask for help. Just ask for help. Like, people want you to be safe.
Absolutely. And I know at Santa Clara, they had safety escorts, did they not? At a certain time of night, you could call them and say, hey, I'm by myself and I need help, or I don't feel safe. I see you nodding your head, Jasmine. Did you have a similar situation that you could call?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I was going to say, I know you mentioned parents and like what they should share, tell their students heading off to college about these issues, safety issues. I think my advice to parents is, maybe if you, not saying not to talk about these things, but if it might be something that you feel like your child or student may not really be open to receiving much from you as the parent, then I think it's really important to have like student community encourage your student to go to Title IX seminars, because when kind of like what Monica was saying, is that she and her friends, as people who, were aware of what to expect, what's safe, what should they do, compared to somebody who's having their first drink at a frat party, that's exactly like the most important difference is being with people who are aware of it. And it's important enough that even, 18-year-old students are gonna realize like this is something that we should, take care of.
Yeah.
So when a whole group of students are all aware, it's a lot easier to not feel like, oh man, I'm, being super goody two shoes by doing this, talking to other students or going to seminars about these safety things, that's really important. I think also, like you said, there are escorts that can help. So I would have a phone number. You can find like the campus police, or even at my other school, we did have like, it wasn't police exactly, but it was, security who were available at, 24/7. So you could just call this phone number and they could just, even if it was, just walking from one building to another when it's dark, that was always an option. And I did use a few times. So.
Nice. Mallory, how about you? Any tips?
I feel like it's all just kind of a combination of what everybody has been saying. I think like this is, without getting too deep into it, like I did survive sexual assault in college and I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. And I think I felt really scared at the time, especially with my parents being so strict, of like feeling ashamed for and making it feel like it was my fault. And so I wound up having an older friend, like she was a junior when I was a freshman, and just finding the older women was really helpful for me. Because not saying about you, Mom, but not everybody has like parents or like older sibling or just like authoritative figures in their lives that they can actually trust and who will actually treat them with like respect. But having somebody older who applies almost like a don't ask, don't tell, but I'm here for you. I won't pry. I won't try and tell you what to do. I'm just here to keep you safe. I mean, like Takey was like, she bought the alcohol for us, but we knew it was coming from her, and she was making sure that we were safe with it, and drinking stuff that like we just really put all of our trust in her. And I felt like once we had like an older woman at school looking out for us, who had gone through the things that we had gone through and was not judgmental and was very available and eager to help the younger women on campus feel safe and like empowered. I think that's a good safety tip, is looking for older people that you can trust and that have your back. Because also like friends are like your peers like in your class are great, but you're all going through the same thing at the same time. You guys probably are all experiencing the same sort of fear, the same fear of looking stupid or acting out, making a scene. But the older people probably know like I'd rather look foolish than be unsafe. So finding the older people, I think, is a good tip.
That is a good tip. And just, all of those, if someone's listening, we are recording it and it will be uploaded, play it back, take notes and have those discussions. But, just know that drugs and alcohol are readily available in school. And I think one of you guys said it relaxes your inhibitions or makes them totally disappear. And, people will do things when they're under the influence that they wouldn't normally do. So, girls need to be careful about secluding themselves with someone they know who normally is a nice person, but under the influence, they may behave differently. And so you need to remember that you yourself may behave differently when you've been drinking a lot or someone gave you some kind of drugs. So these are discussions to have, things to think about and be prepared with how to respond if you're faced with that situation, and if you're with a group of people who insist that you do things you don't want to do, then those are not the people you should be spending time with. Spend time with people who make you feel comfortable and safe and supported. And as far as gun violence, I don't know what to say about that. We should all go to Portugal, where Mia is. With regard to that, all I can say is be aware of your surroundings, pay attention, wherewithal is something we talked about a lot in our household. You watch people and watch their behavior, see, and don't, if there is an issue, I think, of escalating hostility, it's good to let it go and walk away, because you never know what pushes someone's buttons or, what kind of violent background they've had. So just don't engage.
And report anybody who is giving you bad vibes.
Absolutely.
If you see somebody in your class, one of your classmates, like looking at guns and it's not a gun history class or something, like maybe alert campus safety, alert the right people if you are suspicious that somebody is going to do something like that.
Totally.
And even if you're not like involved in some kind of escalating altercation or anything like that, even if you're like around it, it's best to just remove yourself. I think a lot of people are tempted to like stay and watch and see what happens, but like it's just remove yourself completely. It's not worth it.
All good points.
Yeah, and also I'm not sure if this is a very recent thing since I'm currently in school right now, but I think a good helpful thing is being signed up for campus alerts. We do have security alerts that will let you know about any suspicious activity happening and just staying away from certain areas. So that's really helpful.
That is very helpful. All good points, ladies. So I think this is going to be our last question, and Mia touched on this before. This is about money. the Benjamins, the bread, the paper. I'm trying to be cool here. So, getting all my slang in. What is the one thing every girl should know about money? I teach mother-daughter classes, and I start my classes at the age of 8 through 11. And I encourage moms then, like, start now talking about money, because it is a factor that, starts young and carries through the rest of our life. And Mia touched on financial trauma. We learn that, I think, growing up. We learn either good habits or bad habits. And, if you've learned incorrect habits, then you can unlearn them, but it's much better to start learning good ones early. So Mia, I'll let you take that one first. What's the one thing every girl should know about money?
I love this question. I feel like I could write a whole book on it. But the one thing is that you are smart enough to figure out your money. You're smart enough to manage it. You're smart enough to save it. You're smart enough to invest it. You're smart enough to earn it. You don't need to hide your bank statement from yourself. You don't need to act like because you're female that somehow you are born incapable of managing finances, and somehow men are more capable than you with math or whatever the heck we were grown up to think and believe. You are good with money. Just like any subject you figure out and learn, money is figure outable too. So please, you're capable of handling your money. Ditch all the other beliefs about it.
Good tip. Mallory, do you have one thing every girl should know about money?
Yeah, I think it's kind of related to what Mia was saying, but I learning how to budget at that age too, because I just would like be so surprised of like where all my money went at the end of the month. Like I didn't understand. It didn't seem like I was spending that much, but I just like had no idea like how I was spending, how much I was getting. I worked an on-campus job, so like I wish that I had the idea to learn how to budget and track my money, and be more disciplined with like how much money was going to go towards like fun, food, car, all of that stuff. Budgeting, I would actually say, is a good tip.
Mm-hmm. Monica?
Yeah, just to echo off of Mia and Mallory, I am the biggest fan of a spreadsheet these days. I love color coding, budget spreadsheets, figuring out what needs to go where, when it needs to be paid, because a month is a very long time to live off of a certain amount of money. And if it is gone that first week, then you are out of luck the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, I think that this is something that should be taught in high school, to be honest, all about taxes, all about budgeting, just because this is not innate. You do not just all of a sudden wake up knowing what to do with your money, how to pay your bills, how to eat. I was very lucky. I had I had a meal plan with the dining halls, and I made very good friends with the person who worked there. So they would give me these to-go containers. I would fill them up and use that for basically the week. And it was great, but not everybody, has that. So definitely learn how to budget whatever income that you get so that you're more comfortable for the entire month.
Awesome. What about you, Nia?
I think it would be to not be afraid of money or to like shy away from conversations about it. I think people who grow up with money are told like it's inappropriate to talk about, and then people without money, I think there's like a sense of shame around, like how Mia was saying, like financially struggling is like people have shame and guilt around it. So I don't know why it's so taboo to talk about, but I feel like people should talk about it because that's how you learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just trying to get in financial literacy early, and being comfortable around and with money so that it translates into good habits later on.
Yeah, good one. And Jasmine, what words of wisdom do you have about
Well,
money?
I think I'm still very much in the learning phase for this one. So I'm taking everything that everyone else has said.
Cool. Well, I have a word, and this is coming from a parent who has seen kids go through college. If you are just starting out, I would very strongly encourage you to think about your future debt. We are in a time right now where college debt is crushing, especially millennials and beyond, because the cost of education has skyrocketed when incomes have not. And Mallory touched on something earlier, and I remember having that discussion about her Latina friends thinking that, the counselor discouraged her from going to Santa Clara because, it was a thing about, maybe it was people of color. But now I wonder if she wasn't encouraging her to do something different because of the cost of Santa Clara. It's a very expensive school. And so I would just encourage parents and their kids to investigate alternatives to paying $50,000 a year for tuition, much of which you will have to borrow, and much of which your student will have to pay back after graduation. And, that salary that they earned right out of school is not going to give them a lot of cushion to pay off their debt and live. So, some options may be to do a junior college for a couple of years that's really affordable and cheap, and then go to the school of your choice. I think in this day and time, it requires being creative because debt is real. It is stressful and it follows you, student loans are something you can't declare bankruptcy on. And the government has made sure of that. So just understand what it is you're getting and what it's going to require of you. I know as a high school senior, the last thing on your mind is, the money I'm going to be making or paying back after college, but it's something parents need to be clear on so that they can coach their kids about, because it's real and it'll be here before you know it. And it is so disheartening when you get your first paycheck and a large chunk of it goes to pay a debt. And then you had high hopes about living on your own and traveling and blah, blah, blah. But first, the debt comes first. So I would just say parents need, before your student signs up for a whole bunch of loans, understand what that means for them in their future. All right.
Can
Did
I
you
have one other thing?
Sure.
Also, I think it's important for parents to talk to their kids to not sign up for credit cards, because I know when I went to college, everyone was contacting me about sign up for this credit card, sign up for this credit card. I did sign up for an express credit card and it almost ruined my credit. My dad called me so angry because I wanted to, I think it was like a dress for maybe $50 or something like that. But just don't sign up for a credit card until you are a little bit more aware of how they work and credit utilization and all of that stuff. Just focus on the budgeting portion.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Credit is insidious. You get it now and you get to enjoy the stuff now, but you're gonna have to pay it back plus some. So just understand that, and just another thing to add to the list. All right, ladies, you all did not disappoint. I knew you had some wonderful things to say. And I appreciate you all showing up. And if there's one other thing anybody wants to add, now's the time. Anybody else have anything to say? All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thanks again. I love you all. You did a great job and I appreciate it so much. To all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. This will be uploaded to YouTube for the video and to the podcast for the audio. If you enjoyed it or you want to share it, please do so. I hope we shared some valuable things that will be helpful. Also, if you are motivated to share stories of your own, you can go to our website at igrowgirl.com, go to the podcast page, and there's an icon of a microphone. So you can leave a short voicemail about your experience and, you know, what nugget of knowledge you'd like to share, or you could just leave a message to thank these beautiful, fantastic, smart women for sharing with us. All right. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon. Go spread the health. Bye-bye.